Hello, everyone. Mr. Hauger here with a World War I preview of the test that is coming. And it's a basic summary of the four main reasons that the United States and many countries in the world got called into the conflagration that became World War I, as well as kind of a cursory overview of how 50 to 100 years of history caused all these actions to pin into place and all these alliances to switch and trigger, and how we ended up in the situation that we did, still living with the results of the end of which. So let's dive right in and try to be efficient with time here. First, thanks everybody for being so attentive in class. It's really been a great course, and looking forward to seeing you next time. I don't know why I couldn't get that sentence out, but let's hope the rest goes smoother. The assassination of one person, while not the sole cause or the only reason for why World War I started, but it really got the ball rolling and put a lot of events into the course of action where everyone started triggering declarations of war. That was Franz Ferdinand. He was the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, and he is the main reason that we started talking about how one assassination and the ensuing decline of the ability to comply with orders on Serbia's part and the suspicion that Serbia was involved, they got everything involved. Let's talk about the four main reasons for war: militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. There are many, many factors in books and analyses and reasons we could look into this for, but essentially, with the military building up so much in so many countries, the greatest of which was Germany, which increased military spending by more than 70% as it prepared for this time period to defend its colonies, its interests in Africa, its control of Europe, and its desire to spread and expand, were putting everybody on edge, because with everyone's military beefing up, branching out, it sure seemed like everyone needed to do the same thing in order to compete with the arms race or invest in technology, but also just to defend their interests and to defend the interests of their allies and their colonies. With people having expanded so far, it took a lot of military to enforce control and power and mainstay over that wealth. So that was a good deal and a good reason for it. And when I say good reason for it, one of the main reasons for it. Besides the militarism, we can also talk about alliances and how heavily that played a factor into everyone triggering war. Because so many countries had aligned themselves to protect their interests and their colonies, there were many more potential countries to jump into conflict once a conflict would break out. The Triple Entente contained France, Russia, and later Great Britain, and then the Triple Alliance had Austria, Hungary, Germany, and additionally Italy before they changed sides. So that was a large portion of world powers that were ready to jump into conflict if anything were to escalate. Back to Maine for a second. The alliances that we're talking about are the second letter, the letter A, and it also involved the fact that if one country was attacked, that many other countries would join in to protect that country. When everyone saw Germany's army building up or another nation declaring war, it was a matter of time before somebody's interests became your interests as well, and multiple people became drawn in because of imperialism. The colonies and control over many different regions of the world. Countries would end up coming into contact with each other, coming into conflict over controlling trade or routes or resources, and that was another reason that countries came to war. And then lastly, nationalism. We talked about the many countries in Eastern and Central Europe who are trying to unify or gain independence or push back on the dominance of a foreign nation. And there were many countries yearning to be free, having their own independence, make their own rules, be able to govern themselves. All of those things created a storm that was a powder keg waiting to take off at the shot heard around the world, and many other instances along the way. When George Washington left office, one of the things he said was to make sure that we don't form political parties, because they will struggle and quibble and fight, and to not get involved in foreign affairs. And we did both of those things. And you can see how that played off. One of the new ways in which this war became different, and we went over many on the 13th and the 14th of January in my classroom, was the digging of trenches, the 35,000 total miles if they would have been put end to end, and how this elongated the war. It racked up body count with forces trying to form offenses and charge machine gun fire and oncoming fire. And this digging in for protection, creating internal ridges with barbed wire protection and complex underground systems, it led to the need to escalate the amount of force that we could do in order to draw people out and to do damage where protective barriers were protecting soldiers. That trench warfare changed a lot of different things. We're almost halfway through already, so we're moving quite quickly, even though the war didn't, lasting for 4 years. And gaseous and chemical weapons were used for the first time. So you have tear gas and chlorine gas having their origins in World War I for the first time. Then in 1815, when you look at causes and events leading up to war and advancing the frustrations of many countries, the Congress of Vienna separated European countries without considering the language, culture, or people in the territories that were divided. So when you draw map lines arbitrarily or incompletely, without fully understanding what you're doing and what the results are going to be, that increased a lot of the demand for civil war or pushback or conflict. And in many areas, the conflict was for the result of many different things. And some of those conflicts or civil wars or internal fires that were being fought had their own origins for 100 years or multiple generations or going back even further. All of history seems to be deeper than the roots that you're currently looking at. Elements of New World War I spy technology, land surveying, forging of understanding what's in the battlefield ahead, came through Zeppelins. Being able to fly over with blimps and aircraft and see how many forces would be needed, what the soldiers should be prepared for on the ground, do advanced scouting, plan out routes. This all changed the course of warfare. Advances also in machine guns and artillery greatly increased the body count in World War I and how many people would fall victim to the war technology. In the Battle of Somme, for example, this is the first large-scale debut of tanks. 1.2 million people would perish in that battle over 141 days. And so tanks also begin to change how we fight, what fighting looks like, what strategy looks like, how military troops will file, in what progression they will march, how fast they can get there, to what terrain they can drive through. What an advance in technology that was going to prove out to be. One effect of trench warfare was that each battle lasted for a longer amount of time because people were dug in. And so in July of 1914, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. To answer that, we have Germany declaring war, Russia declaring war, and I just want you to review your notes and be able to understand what happened first and what happened second and what happened third. So please do that, or you can look up information online if you'd like to for some visuals. Timelines are very helpful here, and that's why we did a timeline in class. So I gave you that resource specifically to review here, and instead of spoon-feeding everything, take a look at that. If you can't find it, go online and search it. It will help you understand how fast things unraveled in different directions. And because Belgium ends up invaded, England then declares war and joins the war effort. The United States sells war bonds and has propaganda to raise support for the war in America. And we have now a drawn-out, full-scale, full war going on. So that's an overview. And there are many, many things that are legacies of World War I and that are around because of disagreements and because of how things ended and what the reparations were going to be. And I'm going to save most of those follow-ups to be discussed in our next test. So basically, I want you to know the onset, some of the happenings, some of the advances, how things were changed, and then we'll focus more on the legacy in the next chapter and in the next unit. I'm Mr. Hauger, thanking you so much for joining. If you haven't joined Edmodo, make sure you do that. And we'll see you back in class. Wherever you're watching, students outside of our classrooms watch this. Hello to you and good luck in your studies as well. I hope that you're developing a perspective and becoming a more open-minded and friendly person to our world as well. We'll see you on the next edition. And this is it for the Hauger History Podcast. Class is dismissed. Catch you later.